माननीय मंत्री जी का जवाब.
Minister reply.
Thank you very much, sir. So I thank all the members who have participated in this very important debate. Even at the outset, I'd like to express my little disappointment that some members of the opposition have chosen to not participate in a very important debate, whilst on the one hand we normally do speak that the Rajya Sabha's voice, even if it's a finance bill, has got to be given its due weight and consideration. On the other, we find that on a critical debate like this, notwithstanding the response given by the Minister of External Affairs, some members of the opposition have chosen not to be a part of this debate, which really lets me down. I would have loved to hear all the concrete points that they would come to talk about the finance bill and also about the appropriation discussion, because that is very critical. And for a continuing, as the leader of the opposition, Shri Ghulam Nabi Azad rightly said, it is a continuing house, it doesn't dissolve. We are people who think about every matters, irrespective of state, irrespective of language, irrespective of religion. Budget is actually, the finance bill is actually, the appropriation bill is actually a clear example and manifestation of that without discrimination, talking about government and governance. And it is in this that I wish, showed their maturity to participate, but I am really sorry that they are not here. However, I am very grateful that there are other members who have participated and given their valuable views. As always, I like to read a list of all the members who have participated in it, thanking them for their inputs. Shri Ashok Bajpai, Shri Prashantananda, Srimati Ms. Kekashan Parveen, Dr. Prakash Banda, Shri Anil Jain, Shri Namarita Krishnan, Shri Vijay Sai Reddy, Shri Bhupender Yadav, Shri A.K. Selvaraj, Shri K.J. Alphonse, Shri S.R. Balasubramanian, and Shri Suresh Prabhu. So these discussions have continued for 4 hours, and we've had very meaningful inputs coming in, and some of which I certainly will respond to. As regards the appropriation bill, although there was this intent that we will be talking at least about 4 different ministries and their demands for grants, the ministries which were listed to have a discussion were the MEA, the Home Ministry, MSME, and also Ayush. However, it was only the Ayush Ministry which could come and explain their demands for grants, and there was an elaborate discussion on how and what it should be like. And I'm very grateful for all the members who participated in that demand for grant for the Ayush Mantralaya. However, the discussions on other ministries could not take place. With that said, sir, I just want to underline what actually was said in the finance bill and why is it that we need to have a separate discussion on it, aside from the discussion which was held in the broader budget speeches. Many of the members who thought it fit to repeat some of the points which have occurred in the budget speech have also repeated it, which I value, and I appreciate their underlining those points. Finance bill, sir, as all of us are fairly aware, is largely the bill which speaks about the taxation matters. It gives you what the government proposes to do in terms of taxes, how many taxes are going to be affected, either because of an amendment, how many acts are being invoked in order to bring in a taxation, or any other explanations which are given as regards fiscal, the taxation related matters. And in this, as some of the speakers, I particularly take the name of Shri Bhupender Yadav, who very clearly laid before us as to what we were proposing to do through this finance bill. It is a bill which gives a clear picture of why certain taxations, why certain amendments, and why certain duties are either increased or decreased, as the case may be, are being done. They are being done, and I again refer to the member, Honorable Shri Bhupendra Yadavji, in clearly bringing the picture that this government, now that we've come with a larger mandate and for the second time, is aiming to bring in such changes for building a new India wherein there is a greater transparency, less of government and more of governance, and making sure that the redistribution of collected resources happen with a great equity principle in mind. So if you were to raise more taxes, your more collection is only going to result in more redistribution of funds, thereby bringing a far more equitable development. Some members also spoke about district level, particularly Sri Suresh Prabhu, who concluded the discussion, spoke about how it is important to have districts focused development, because when districts improve, the country improves. And that's where I want to answer and also underline the fact that the Prime Minister's 115, which subsequently also came down to 112, but 115 originally, aspirational districts idea, was essentially derived from the point that it is no good just for the country to develop in some parts, leaving some other parts behind and underdeveloped. Those underdeveloped districts are also got to be given that necessary push. Fundamental basic amenities which have to reach them should be reached. Otherwise, even if you grow at a good rate, these baggages would pull you down because they are still crying for help. In order that we get over that problem, the aspirational district aspect was brought in, and every government scheme, particularly the union government schemes, are now in sharp focus that these districts will get that benefit and therefore be accelerators to growth rather than pull the growth down because of their underdevelopment. So many of the points which many of the members have spoken are spoken with an understanding that the country needs a complete holistic development and a development which is spread across the geographical area. Now, since I've spoken about the finance bill's broader principle, I want to just underline, under direct taxes, what have we done? Under indirect, what have we done? And what are the other taxes or acts that I've touched in the context of the finance bill? Under direct taxation, there are 7 acts which are invoked and some amendments are being made to them. I'll just read them out. You'll understand why these are being touched upon. Reduction in corporate tax rate is done with an intention. As was explained, a trajectory was given to us as to how we'll bring the corporate tax from the high that it was in 30% to down to 25%. It was a commitment given in the first ever budget in 2014. I had to honor it. We've brought it down in order that now 99.3% industries are all now covered by the 25% rate, and therefore hardly any are left behind who will have to be now covered. We shall cover them sooner. But the promise that corporate tax will have to be brought down has been kept up. So that is one of the things that I'm touching. Then incentive being given for purchase of electrical vehicles is also something which is important. Now, all these underline the fact that unless we continuously make taxation come down and make sure that the larger principle of redistribution is attended to, equity is not going to be addressed. Now, incentives which are being given for startups is a very important aspect again. And there I understood that the step that this government has taken to bring down the angel tax has been received very well by the startups. Other than that, of course, whole lot of measures have been taken. I wouldn't take too much of a time. I understand the House has got to be functioning for some other minister's bill also. So I won't take more of the time, but only to indicate to the honorable members that under direct taxation, there are 7 acts through which amendments are being brought in, largely for ease of living and making sure equity in redistribution takes place. So I did name corporate tax, I did name purchase of vehicles for incentivizing them, startups and the taxation which are being given as reliefs to them, then affordable housing, where again the limit in the first of all, it is proposed to relax condition of 100% profit-linked deduction to affordable housing projects. A lot of members have already spoken about it. I won't elaborate, but the fact remains that increasing the limit of carpet area from 30 square meters to 60 square meters in metropolitan regions and from 60 square meters to 90 square meters in non-metropolitan region is going to make it possible for people who are looking at affordable houses to be able to buy at their budget levels. It is also proposed again to align the limit on cost of the affordable house to 45 lakhs with the GST Act. So then under direct taxes, we are also giving a lot more consideration for the International Financial Services Center, the IFSC, so that India becomes a leading financial hub. The facility which has been created in Gandhinagar is really rapidly progressing in that direction, and the kind of deduction and taxation related facility that we want to offer them is to expedite that process. Then we'll also, as many members referred to it, we have also brought in a lot of steps towards improving the situation on the NBFCs, the non-banking financial companies. I wouldn't really go into the details, but those steps are kept in mind, and those steps are taken after keeping in mind the development which has been happening in the last 1 year. Not very savory, but because of those kind of developments, we wanted to make sure that we redress the stress levels which are prevailing in the NBFCs. We want to address it, and that is why many steps have been taken. So under direct taxation, again, we are pre-filling tax forms so that taxpayer has a hassle-free payment as he does when he wants to pay his taxes. Interchangeability of PAN and Aadhaar is something which is important, and which will bring in greater ease of compliance. So these are the kind of steps we have taken as regards direct taxes. On indirect taxes, again, 7 acts are being touched, some of which are very important from the point of view of bringing or reconciling and getting some level playing field. Customs Act has been touched because we want to have greater compliance. Some repetitive errors which are being done shouldn't be done. People who are repeatedly gaming the system, if we have enough evidence, we want to take them to a magistrate court and be able to search them physically. Their luggage and their baggage can be checked even otherwise. But today, if they're physically in their bodies, because many of our members would have read that within their body, they plant drugs or gold and some things like that for smuggling purposes. If some offenders are being noticed periodically doing this, Customs Act needs modification. If the customs authority are to be searching them, and they cannot be searching them physically now unless the amendments are made. So these amendments have been brought in order that customs, when they have legitimate information, will be able to search such violators of law, but of course it will be done in the presence of a magistrate, and therefore no worries about empowering the customs without a responsibility. Customs Tariff Act is the other. Goods and services tax is also being touched upon. Of course, that goods and services tax which comes through the GST Council is what is being referred to here. The Council approves, we take that call on the GST taxation, but because Parliament is the supreme body, many finance-related matters come here, we are duty-bound to bring it here. And in the GST itself, 5 different changes are being brought in, and that's been explained through the finance bill. More important is the amendment to the PMLA, the Prevention of Money Laundering Act. There is one or two, a couple of amendments which are being made to the PMLA, which I just want to elaborate a bit, just so honorable members know what is it that we're doing to the PMLA Act. They're all explanatory changes that we're bringing in. Of the 8 different changes that we're bringing into the PMLA, 6 relate to explanatory notes, because we find that in the courts, many of those offenders under the PMLA, if there are 2 cases happening, try to club both the cases, although they may be materially different, and seek a bail, and therefore what happens is a case which has a different procedural matter is also clubbed together with a case which is not procedural. End of the day, the law does not get invoked in its true letter and spirit. So such changes in the definition and explanatory matters have been done in the PMLA. One little proviso which was not really relevant has been removed, and another which is being brought in again is more to make it clearer so that PMLA, when invoked, becomes far more effective. So these are the points on the PMLA related matters. Then there are changes to the financial markets related acts, in which the Security and Contracts Regulation, the SCR Act, has been changed. The SEBI Act is also being changed because we needed to make sure that some of the surplus fund and alteration, destruction, mutilation related matters are all taken up. The RBI Act is being changed, and one of the members did rightly speak about it. We needed to change this because we are giving powers to the RBI now in order that they will be able to regulate and also give resolution in the matters of NBFC related areas. Inclusive of, did one member refer to the housing, National Housing Board, where they were the regulator, but now that power is also being changed to the Reserve Bank, because I think it was important to have all the regulatory control being given to the Reserve Bank, which has the wherewithal to do it, rather than be spread across the board in different departments of the government, where probably the wherewithal and the capacity to regulate doesn't exist as much as we wish to have them. Then, of course, there's also the change being made to a fund, the Central Road and Infrastructure Fund Act, through which the monies go from the center, the states receive them and spend them, but members of parliament were also involved in it. Now the clarity is being brought in. None of the spirit and letter of the act is being changed. It is the Fund Act remains intact, but a bit of a clarity is being brought in. So such changes are being brought in only to make sure that we are able to deliver better on governance. So without taking much time, the specific points which some of the members raised, I'd like to address them. Shri Prashant Nanda did speak about devolution to the states. So the increase in devolution from 32 to 42% has actually provided a higher level of shared funds for the state. And this is something which this government, under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, between 2014, 15, 16, had taken it as a call, and it is only after that the devolution of a greater portion of the monies collected go to the states. So 32 to 42% has provided much higher level of untied funds to the states, in line with the demand that most of the states had even then. Now, therefore, I want to just give you the benefit of numbers. Despite that, of course, we have ensured that central assistance, we are giving greater amount now for 32 to 42, but that has not stopped us from spending money on central schemes. So I just want to explain that point. Despite this higher devolution to the states, we have ensured that central assistance to states have also been substantially increased. It was 2,55,968 crores in the year 2013-14, prior to the 14th Finance Commission, and is now 3,89,802 crores. That is in 2019-20, the BE figures. Therefore, an increase of 1,33,834 crores through the central assistance. So I want to assure members that the increase in the devolution percentage from 32 to 42 has not cut down on the central assistances which we give from the states, from the center to the states. Shri Vijay Sai Reddy has raised quite a few points regarding taxation matters. I like to just very clearly assure him that each one of the points are being addressed. I'll give a smaller, crisp answer, but of course, whenever there's possibility, I can elaborate when he wants. So the basic customs duty of 10% shall adversely affect the small newspapers. When he was talking about the newsprint related matter, we've come out with a customs duty of 10% for all newsprint. So Shri Vijay Sai Reddy has said that this will affect the small newspapers. The advertising revenues are also depleting. I just want to respond to the honorable member by saying the basic customs duty on newsprint has been increased to provide a level playing field, sir, and level playing field to the domestic manufacturers. There is capacity in this country to produce newsprint, but unfortunately they are not able to have buyers taking from them because most of them are importing. And in the last few months, I can very clearly tell you, there's been a drastic fall in the price overseas. What was available for $700 per ton or 700 odd per ton has now come down to 500 per ton. And that kind of a fall in the global newsprint price has affected the Indian manufacturers so badly that they are not able to find any takers for their product. So if we are talking of Make in India, but allowing indirectly to import, it doesn't make sense at all. And I'm sure the honorable member will appreciate the point that when we are trying to make Indian industry survive this kind of an onslaught, this is inevitable. You can't allow a fall in international price adversely affecting when we have capacities for it. If we didn't have the capacity, I can fully understand. So I want the honorable member to please appreciate. And I also want to say, newsprint attracted basic customs even before 2009. We are not the first ones to put it here now. So that's for your consideration. Again, Shri Vijay Sai Reddy talking about cash withdrawals. Cash withdrawals being punished, you're putting a 2% TDS on it. So I want to very clearly make it a point to point out to the honorable member. We have had several instances of people dealing and transacting huge sums of money in cash from their accounts. And when we trace it to their names, they have not even filed an income tax return. If only they file a return, I don't mind, because if they file the return, this TDS that we are levying on the cash withdrawal, huge amounts being withdrawn, can always be reconciled with the tax that you are anyway entitled to pay. We are not saying this is over and above what you are entitled to pay. You pay that also and pay this also. We are only saying if you did not file an income tax and if you are required to file one because you come under the category of those who have to pay a tax but you haven't paid, I'm sorry, this TDS is anyway going to be on you. You tell me if you paid it, and if you paid it, adjust this as a credit to your tax that you're paying. So it's not over and above, sir. So that has to be cleared. Sir, the next one is, why penalize people automatically? Meaning, why penalty is imposed automatically for failure to furnish return of income? The same logic prevails there too. If again we track either you've spent on your foreign travels, or you bought an expensive FMCG good, and you've spent substantial money in cash, withdrawing cash, but you have not even bothered to give a return of income information to the tax department. Meaning, either you have not given the income details, or you don't even become an assessee. Surely, sir, this country will have some way in which we ask you a question saying as to why wouldn't you, if you have spent so much, if you have, your income shows this much, why haven't you given us the information on income tax? Why just not give us a return of income statement? A return of income statement tells me that you are either not earning that much, all right, you did buy a thing, but you didn't earn that much, and that not sharing that return of income information when we have credible evidence to believe that you spent large sums of money would justify a penalty. And I'm sorry, nothing is costing you to share the information if you're not even an income tax assessee. It's only the information which has not come through, but once it comes through and we realize that you were indeed a assessee, taxable category person, tax has to be paid. And if not, penalty for not having given the information. So the one other point which member Vijay Sai Reddy asked us is about the cess on petrol and diesel, and rightly had a concern that it will affect the farmers, because if he is filling diesel into his tractor, he is now going to have to pay higher amount. So I want to underline the fact that diesel or petrol are all refined products from crude oil, which is completely imported. We hardly have any crude which can be worth talking about. This country consumes a lot of crude oil, for which foreign exchange is paid and crude is being bought in. Now, I would understand the concern of the member if inflation also was very high, food inflation was also very high, and if the price of diesel is being jacked up because the government is adding to the cess, adding to its cost through cess, I fully appreciate and I can understand the concern. But today inflation is at rock bottom. Like never before, this government has maintained inflation at the lowest level for the last 5-6 years. And we still are importing crude at that kind of a price. And in fact, I must say that this government had reduced the price of petrol by 3.5 rupees a litre. The reduction was also done by us. So if you are now highlighting the concern, rightly so, about any increase because the cess is being laid, please recall when it was necessary, we brought the price down too. But if it is not possible now, because every cess that is collected, particularly through the diesel and petrol, is only going for infrastructure construction. So we are not unmindful of the implication it has on farmers, but that is where I think we have also come up with supporting the farmer with income in his hand, 6,000 rupees to his account, and a whole lot of other steps which are being taken. So lastly, sir, Shri Suresh Prabhuji, while talking about various suggestions that he gave, spoke about the framing of a direct tax code. I'd like to submit this information through you, sir, to the rest of the members of the House. That direct taxation code has, the task force has completed its job. In all likelihood, they will be submitting the report on 31st July this year. And once the report comes, the government will certainly look into it and take a view on how we want to go forward. Ultimately, we are interested, whether it is direct or indirect taxation, we are working towards simplifying the burden on compliance which every assessee undergoes. We want to reduce the burden, not just of the tax on him, but also on compliance matters. So the direct taxation code, which is being submitted through the task force, is something on which immediately attention will be given by the government. So with these said, I want to thank all the members and invite all members to support both the appropriation bill and also the finance bill. Thank you very much.